A single gunshot echoes through the night. The sound reverberates against brick walls, sending pigeons scattering into the darkness. But this isn't a gangland execution. It's the metallic crack of a police battering ram as it splinters the reinforced door of a luxury London apartment. Inside, a man's eyes snap open. Heart pounding, he scrambles for his phone, fingers trembling as they swipe across the screen, desperately trying to send one final warning message. But it's too late. Far too late. In the next 24 hours, officers will seize over £2 million in blood-stained cash, 15 kilograms of pure, uncut cocaine worth millions on the street, and arrest 28 people across 3 counties in one of the most coordinated drug busts in UK history. This is the untold story of how 2 Albanian brothers built one of Britain's most sophisticated drug empires from the shadows, and the fatal mistake that brought their kingdom crashing down. Welcome to Crime Scene Chronicles, where we take you inside the most shocking criminal cases that British authorities have ever encountered. Before we dive deeper into this web of crime, betrayal, and luxury built on human suffering, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We've noticed only 15% of our viewers are subscribed, which means 85% of you might miss our next explosive investigation. Don't be that person. Subscribe now. The morning of March 17, 2022. Dawn breaks over the industrial heartlands of Derbyshire, Leicestershire, and Staffordshire. Factory workers clock in. School children board buses. An ordinary Thursday in Middle England. But beneath this mundane surface, something sinister was pulsing through the veins of these communities. A poison. A white powder cutting through class lines, destroying families, and funding an empire controlled by 2 men who never even set foot on these streets. The locals had no idea, whispers a former dealer who asks to remain anonymous. They didn't know that every gram they bought was putting money directly into the pockets of 2 brothers who were laughing all the way to the bank. The Eddie line, named after its mastermind, Edmund Haziri, wasn't just another drug operation. It was a business. A brutal, efficient, ruthlessly organized business that moved cocaine from London to the Midlands with military precision. Police now estimate that at its peak, the network was pumping over 3 kilograms of high-purity cocaine every week into these working-class communities. Street value? More than £300,000 every 7 days. £1.2 million every month. Over £15 million per year. While mothers wept over children lost to addiction, while families were torn apart by debt and dependency, the men controlling the supply chain lived like royalty. According to Detective Inspector Kane Martin, who led the investigation, the Haziri brothers weren't just dealing drugs. They were dealing in misery, addiction, and death, all while living luxury lifestyles funded by other people's suffering. Their operation was unlike anything local police had seen before. At the top, Edmund and Eddie Haziri, Albanian nationals with connections to international drug cartels that stretched across Europe and South America. Below them, a network of trusted family members, couriers, and street dealers, all operating under a strict code of loyalty enforced not just by money, but by fear. One mistake would not be tolerated. Albanian crime groups operate differently than traditional British gangs, explains former Metropolitan Police Detective Sarah Collins. They are built on family ties and a code of silence, omerta, that makes them incredibly difficult to infiltrate. But no criminal empire lasts forever. And as we'll discover, it would be the smallest thread that would eventually unravel the entire operation. If you're finding this inside look at organized crime fascinating, smash that like button now and leave a comment telling us what criminal empire you want us to investigate next. Trust me, you haven't heard anything yet. Who were the men behind this operation? Edmund Haziri, 36, the elder brother and undisputed leader of the organization, didn't look like a criminal mastermind. With his designer glasses, perfectly trimmed beard, and business casual attire, he could easily pass for a tech entrepreneur or financial analyst. Born in Tirana, Albania, he moved to London in his early 20s with nothing but a small suitcase and connections to the ruthless Albanian mafia. On paper, he operated a small car washing business in East London, Eddie's Auto Spa, a perfect front for laundering millions in drug money. In reality, he was the critical connection between international cocaine suppliers and the untapped UK drug markets of the Midlands. From his £1.2 million apartment in a gated London community, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the Thames, Edmund rarely dirtied his own hands. He was the strategist, the networker, the man who could make one phone call and have someone disappear. When police finally raided his home, the extent of his wealth was staggering. £120,000 in cash hidden in designer shoe boxes. 3 Rolex watches worth over £50,000 each. A notebook containing coded records of drug transactions. Ownership documents for properties across 4 countries. But what investigators didn't expect to find was evidence of something much darker, something we'll return to later. Edward Haziri, 33, operated in his brother's shadow, but was no less crucial to the operation. While Edmund maintained supplier relationships, Edward, with his mixed martial arts physique and cold, calculating demeanor, managed the network of dealers and enforcers. Former associates describe Edward as the scary one. Edmund would smile while having you killed, says one former dealer who cooperated with police. Edward would do it himself and not even blink. The brothers were methodical. Careful. Always 3 steps ahead. They never used their own names in messages. They changed phones every 2 weeks. They never kept drugs in their own homes. They used family members as their most trusted associates, people who would never betray them, no matter what. At their sentencing, Judge Robert Igbuna didn't hold back. You preyed on the weaknesses of others to fund your extravagant lifestyles. You showed not a moment's concern for the devastating impact your trade has on communities and families torn apart by addiction. In Edmund's garage, a Lamborghini Huracan worth £200,000 and a Mercedes-AMG G63 valued at £140,000. In Edward's safe, gold bars worth £80,000 and ownership documents for properties in Spain and Albania. The brothers had built an empire on human suffering. But the foundation was about to crumble in a way they never expected. Before we reveal the fatal flaw in their operation, this investigation took hundreds of hours to research and produce. If you appreciate this level of in-depth crime reporting, please take 1 second to hit subscribe. It costs you nothing but means everything to our team. Every successful criminal enterprise needs reliable soldiers. For the Haziri brothers, their most trusted lieutenant was their cousin, Gazmund Hoxha, a former Albanian military officer with dead eyes and a surgical precision to his movements. Twice a week, Hoxha would make the 130-mile journey from his deliberately modest semi-detached home in Leicester to a nondescript parking garage in East London. In the trunk of his specially modified Audi A6, up to £150,000 in cash, vacuum-sealed to hide the scent from police dogs. Within hours, he would return with 2 to 3 kilograms of high-purity cocaine, carefully concealed in hidden compartments built into the vehicle's framework. He never sped, notes Detective Sergeant Lisa Warren, who tracked Hoxha for weeks. Always drove exactly at the speed limit. Never used his phone while driving. Never stopped for food or toilet breaks. He was invisible precisely because he was so ordinary. But how did they keep this operation hidden for so long? The answer: technology and terror. The Haziri brothers equipped their entire network with encrypted EncroChat phones, devices specifically designed to evade police surveillance, costing £3,000 each. Messages would automatically delete after being read. Calls couldn't be tapped. The phones themselves could be remotely wiped with a single text message if they fell into the wrong hands. Once the drugs reached the Midlands, they were taken to processing houses, ordinary-looking homes in quiet suburbs where curtains were always drawn. Here, the pure cocaine would be cut with cheaper substances, bentocaine, lidocaine, sometimes even crushed paracetamol, often doubling or tripling the original amount while maintaining enough purity to keep customers dependent. From these processing houses, the drugs would flow to local dealers across all 3 counties, each dealer responsible for their own territory, each territory marked not on maps but in blood. Money flowed back up the chain. To hide their profits, the brothers used a complex money laundering operation. Cash was converted to cryptocurrency through anonymous exchanges. Funds were moved through online gambling sites. Money was invested in legitimate businesses, from nail salons to convenience stores. Cash was physically transported back to Albania by trusted couriers. At street level, local dealers, many of them addicts themselves, trapped in a cycle of dependency, would sell to users. One such dealer, arrested in Derby in January 2022, told police through tears, "I owe them money. If I don't pay, they'll hurt my family. You don't understand who you're dealing with. They found my sister's school. Sent me a picture of her walking home. Just to show they could." That dealer's arrest would become the first thread that unraveled the entire operation. But what the police didn't know yet was that someone inside the organization was already plotting their downfall, someone they would never suspect. Want to know who betrayed the Haziri brothers? Make sure you've hit subscribe before we reveal the twist that broke this case wide open. For Detective Inspector Kane Martin of Derbyshire Police, the case began with something small. A street dealer arrested with just 28 grams of cocaine, barely an ounce, on a routine patrol in a known problem area of Derby. But this dealer was scared, more scared than someone facing simple possession charges should be. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, even hours after his arrest. He kept looking over his shoulder even in the interview room, recalls D.I. Martin, a 15-year veteran of drug cases. That's when we knew he was part of something bigger. You don't get that kind of fear from normal dealers. The dealer gave them a name, Eddie. Not much to go on. A nickname used by thousands. But it was a start. Over the next 3 months, Derbyshire Police worked with neighbouring forces in Leicestershire and Staffordshire to piece together the puzzle. They tracked phone records, identifying patterns of calls that pulsed outward like a spider's web. They conducted surveillance operations, photographing meetings that lasted seconds but transferred thousands. They followed money trails through bank accounts registered to people who didn't exist. The breakthrough came when they identified Gazmond Horger's regular journeys between Leicester and London. Once we had Horger, we could work both up and down the chain, explains D.I. Martin. Up to the suppliers, down to the street dealers. But building a case strong enough to take down the entire network required patience, and a stroke of luck they never expected. In late January 2022, an anonymous package arrived at Derbyshire Police headquarters. Inside, a USB drive containing financial records, customer lists, and, most crucially, the addresses of 3 processing houses. The sender had included a note, "They killed my brother. He owed them £200. Make them pay." This was the turning point. By February 2022, police had enough evidence to act. They planned simultaneous raids across 32 locations in London, Derby, Leicester, Burton-upon-Trent, and Stoke-on-Trent. Over 200 officers would be involved in what would be code-named Operation Snowfall. The operation was set for March 17, 2022. The night before, D.I. Martin told his team, "Tomorrow, we cut the head off the snake." What they didn't realize was just how big the snake actually was, or that it had a third head they knew nothing about. This investigation is about to take a shocking turn. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time, because what police discovered next changed everything they thought they knew about the case. 5 a.m. March 17, 2022. As dawn broke over London, a battering ram smashed through the door of Edmund Haziri's luxury apartment. He was caught literally sleeping on his fortune. Officers found £15,000 in cash under his mattress and a loaded Glock 19 handgun within reach. Simultaneously, officers arrested Edward Haziri at his home in North London. He attempted to flee across the rooftops but was tackled by an officer who suffered 3 broken ribs in the struggle. In Leicester, Edmund Haziri was pulled over on the M1 motorway with 2 kilograms of cocaine in his trunk and a list of customers' addresses in his pocket. Within 3 hours, 28 people were in custody. The haul was enormous, far bigger than even the most optimistic projections. Over 15 kilograms of cocaine with street value exceeding £1.5 million. More than £2 million in cash, some of it still in bank wrappers. Luxury watches, cars, and jewelry worth over £1 million. 45 encrypted phones containing partial message histories. Property deeds worth millions across 4 countries. A ledger showing connections to 3 other major drug operations. But the most shocking discovery came at a seemingly insignificant property in Burton-upon-Trent. It looked like nothing, recalls Detective Sergeant Warren. A rundown terrace house with peeling paint. We almost didn't raid it. Inside, police found a sophisticated surveillance center monitoring competing drug dealers across the Midlands. Maps on the walls showed territory divisions. Folders contained personal details of rival gang members' families. And most disturbing of all, evidence suggesting the Haziri brothers were planning to expand beyond drugs into human trafficking. That discovery changed the entire complexion of the case, says D.I. Martin. This wasn't just about drugs anymore. This was about stopping something much worse before it started. The trial at Derby Crown Court lasted 7 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. On November 3, 2022, Judge Robert Igbuna handed down the sentences. Edmund Haziri, 21 years. Edward Haziri, 18 years. Edmund Haziri, 14 years. In total, the network received over 70 years in combined sentences. Detective Chief Superintendent Dave Kirby told reporters, "This wasn't just about taking drugs off our streets. This was about dismantling an organization that was poisoning our communities." What he didn't reveal publicly was the identity of the informant who had sent the USB drive, a mystery that would only be solved months later, sending shockwaves through law enforcement. If you are stunned by these revelations as we are, hit that subscribe button now. In the next part of this story, we'll reveal who betrayed the Haziris and the unexpected aftermath of their capture that continues to this day. The fall of the Haziri brothers left a power vacuum in the Midlands drug trade. Nature abhors a vacuum. So does organized crime. Within weeks, violence erupted across the 3 counties as rival gangs fought for control of the lucrative territories. Emergency rooms reported a 60% increase in knife injuries. 2 suspected dealers were found executed in the trunk of a burning car outside Stoke-on-Trent. When one network falls, others try to take its place, admits D.I. Martin. But this case sent a clear message: no one is untouchable. Albanian crime groups continue to play a significant role in the UK's cocaine market. Their family-based structure and code of silence make them formidable opponents for law enforcement. But as the Haziri brothers discovered, no empire lasts forever. So who sent the USB drive that ultimately led to their downfall? The truth emerged 6 months after the sentencing, when a body washed up on the banks of the Thames. Artan Haziri, 29. The secret third brother. Forensic evidence revealed he had been tortured for days before being executed with a single shot to the head, the classic Albanian mafia punishment for betrayal. According to police sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, Artan had been skimming from the operation for years, building his own escape fund. The brothers had a falling out, our source reveals. Artan wanted to go legitimate, to walk away. Edmund and Edward refused. They threatened his girlfriend and her child. So he decided to burn it all down. In his final act of betrayal, Artan had compiled evidence against his brothers, but his revenge cost him his life. It's believed that associates of the Haziri brothers who remained at large carried out the execution. To this day, his killers remain at large. All that money. All that power. All built on human misery. And in the end, all lost in a fraternal betrayal that Shakespeare himself could have written. The Haziri brothers will spend the next 2 decades behind bars, their empire shattered, their fortunes seized, their family destroyed from within. But even now, police believe millions in cocaine money remains hidden, waiting to be claimed when the brothers eventually walk free. And in the streets of the Midlands, the poison continues to flow. New names. New networks. The same devastating impact. A reminder that crime might pay for a while, but justice, or betrayal, catches up eventually. This has been Crime Scene Chronicles. If you found this story as shocking as we did, help us share it with others. Hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and share this video with someone who appreciates real crime stories told with depth and accuracy. In the comments below, tell us which crime case you want us to cover next. We're already investigating the Glasgow ice cream wars, the Essex Boys murders, and the Yorkshire Ripper case, but your suggestion could be our next deep dive. Until next time, remember, the darkest crimes often hide in plain sight. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay subscribed.